Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in life when silence screams louder than words. When the people you once called your own slowly begin to fade, their promises empty, their laughter fleeting, their support conditional. You are left staring at the walls, wondering why the ones you called friends are the first to disappear when the lights go out. It is then that you realize no one is your friend. It sounds harsh, doesn't it? Like a bitter truth we avoid telling ourselves. We grow up believing in friendships like fairy tales, expecting people to stay, to catch us, to walk with us through fire. But here is reality. When your world starts crumbling, most people will either watch or walk away. And it is not because they are cruel, it is because they are human. And humans are not built to carry your burden for long. People support you when it benefits them. That is a hard pill to swallow. But once you do, everything changes. In the beginning, you are surrounded by people who seem to care, who text back quickly, who like your photos, who laugh at your jokes, and you tell yourself, I am lucky, I have true friends. But wait long enough, wait until you are no longer useful, until you are going through something ugly, until your shine dims, and you will begin to see the truth. The people you thought were clapping for you were actually clapping for themselves, for how close they were to you, for what they could gain from your light. The moment that light turns dim, their hands go still, their attention fades, their warmth disappears. It is as if you never mattered, and that hurts. It stings deep, because you gave them your trust, your stories, your time. You defended them, you laughed with them, you believed they were different, but they were just there for the good days, not the real ones. Support, when it comes only during success, is not support, it's convenience. Real support does not wait for you to be perfect. It shows up when you are a mess, when you are silent, when you are angry and afraid. Real support doesn't need to be begged for. It appears without being asked. And if you have to chase someone to care, then they never really care. In truth, most people walk into your life with their own needs, their own expectations. And that is not wrong. We all do. But you must understand that many friendships are built on silent transactions. You give this, I give that. The minute that balance shifts, the friendship starts to dissolve. You are no longer interesting. You are now a burden. And burdens are not fun to hang out with. Look closely. Who checks on you when you go quiet? Who notices when your smile fades? Who stays when there is nothing to gain? That is your circle. It may be smaller than you thought. And yes, that will make you cry. It will make you question your worth. But please, don't, because your worth is not measured by how many people stay. It is measured by how you rise when they leave. You are not meant to be everyone's solution. You are not a free therapist. You are not an emotional sponge. You are a soul that deserves peace, respect, and loyalty. If someone cannot give you that, let them go. Let them be free to find the next person they can use. And you turn your pain into power. Every time someone leaves you when you need them most, they are doing you a favor. They are revealing their true colors. Let them. Do not paint them gold. Do not explain their silence. Just observe. and learn. Because in this world, people support you when it benefits them, but you can learn to support yourself, regardless. You can become the kind of person you always needed, and that is the start of becoming unbreakable. Your struggles are your own. No one truly understands. People might say they do. They might nod along, send you a heart emoji, or even offer a few comforting words. But deep down, they do not feel what you feel. They cannot. Because your pain lives inside you, in your chest, in your breath, in your thoughts, when you try to sleep. And when the world thinks you are doing fine because you smiled at work or posted a happy picture, they have no idea that something inside you feels heavy, almost unbearable. You try to explain sometimes. You open up. You drop hints. You say, "I'm just tired," hoping someone will notice it is not just tiredness. It is sadness. It is pressure. It is loneliness. But they just nod and move on. You're left wondering if you're invisible, or if your pain is too inconvenient for them to hold. And maybe it is. People are too caught up in their own chaos. They do not have the space to sit in yours. That is just how life works. You walk through your day carrying a weight only you can feel, smiling at people who have no idea you barely got out of bed, laughing at jokes when your chest feels hollow. They tell you to stay positive, to stop overthinking, to just be happy, as if healing is a switch you forgot to flip. They mean well, but meaning well does not equal understanding. You begin to realize that there's a difference between people who hear your words and people who feel your silence. When you are in pain, you look around for a hand, a voice, someone to just say, "I get it." But what you often find is silence, or worse, judgment. You're too sensitive, they say. You think too much, so you stop talking. You shrink. You bottle it up. And that's where it gets dangerous. Because now you are not just fighting your demons. You are doing it alone, in a room full of people. Alone, even when someone's sitting next to you. You start to learn that being strong is not about hiding the pain. It is about walking with it, about waking up and doing what you need to do, even when your heart is tired. You realize that waiting for someone to come save you is a game you will always lose. No one can fix you. No one can feel exactly what you feel. You are the only one who can hold your own broken pieces and try, even with shaky hands, to rebuild. This is not about bitterness. It is about truth. It is about accepting that you will go through things in life that no one else will fully grasp. Not your best friend, not your sibling, not even your partner. They might love you, they might try, but they are not inside your mind. They do not carry your memories, your fears, your scars. That space is sacred and lonely, and yours. So you learn to wipe your own tears. You learn to become the friend you always needed. You start giving yourself the compassion others failed to show. It is not easy. In fact, it is exhausting. But slowly, painfully, you start growing. And even though no one truly understands, you begin to understand yourself. That is the beginning of something real. Clarity comes in isolation, not in noise, not in chaos, not when you are surrounded by people giving you advice that sounds wise but feels empty. Clarity arrives when everything else falls silent. When the people you leaned on disappear, when the distractions fade and you are left alone with your thoughts. It does not feel like a blessing at first. It feels like abandonment, like life has pulled the rug from under you. But that space, that uncomfortable quiet, becomes the mirror you never wanted but always needed. In isolation, there is no one left to perform for, no one to impress, no expectations to meet. You stop pretending. You stop editing yourself. You are no longer being shaped by the opinions around you. And for the first time, you hear your own voice without the static, the voice that was always there but buried under noise. It is shaky at first, unsure, but it gets stronger each day, because now it is finally being heard. You start asking questions you avoided. What do I really want? Who am I without the applause, without the validation, without the relationships that made me feel important, but never truly seen? These questions cut deep, but they are honest. And honesty is what clarity is built on. You stop chasing what others told you to chase. You stop following paths that never felt right. You begin to trust your own instincts, your own rhythm, your own pace. There is something powerful about being alone and choosing to stay there. Not as an escape, but as a reset. It is in that space you realize how much energy you were spending trying to be understood. How many battles you fought to explain yourself. How many pieces of yourself you gave away just to feel accepted. And when no one is left to accept you but yourself, you learn how to give yourself back those pieces. Slowly, gently. People often run from isolation because they fear what they will find. But what they do not realize is that what they find is not weakness. It is the raw version of themselves that the world made them hide. The version that is tired of pretending. The version that wants peace more than popularity. That craves truth more than attention. That would rather sit alone in clarity than be surrounded in confusion. And clarity does not scream. It whispers. It arrives in small moments. In the way your chest feels when something aligns. In the peace that comes when you finally stop trying to prove yourself. In the decisions that used to feel impossible, but now feel obvious. It clears the fog. It removes the noise. It shows you the truth about people, about patterns, about yourself. You begin to see who added value to your life and who only took from it. Who stood by you and who stood on you. You recognize habits that held you back. You notice the excuses you've been telling yourself. And with that awareness comes freedom. You are no longer living on autopilot. You are making conscious choices. From a place of strength, not fear. From knowing, not guessing. You do not need everyone to understand your process. Clarity is not something that needs to be explained. It needs to be honored. You don't owe anyone your timeline, your reasons, or your healing pace. You owe it to yourself to keep growing, even if it means walking alone for a while. Because in that aloneness, you find direction, you find alignment, you find a path that actually feels like yours. Expectation is the seed of disappointment. You start with the smallest hope that someone will call, that someone will notice, that someone will do for you what you would do for them. And when they don't, when silence meets your need, it doesn't just hurt, it breaks something inside you, because it was never about grand gestures. It was about the little things. A message, a gesture, a moment of care. And yet, time and time again, those expectations crumble. You sit with your thoughts, trying to understand why people don't meet you where you meet them. You go over every interaction in your mind, wondering if you asked for too much. But the truth is, you didn't ask, you just expected. And that's the trap. Expectations feel harmless until they aren't. They grow quietly. You don't even notice them forming until reality fails to meet them, and suddenly you're staring at a gap so wide it feels like betrayal. You tell yourself, they'll understand, they'll show up, they know I'm struggling. But they don't. Or maybe they do and still choose not to. And that stings. Because you expected them to have the same heart as you, to think like you, to care like you. But not everyone does. Not everyone can. People love in different ways. And some people don't love at all. They just coexist. You start noticing how much of your pain is rooted in assumption. You assumed they'd remember your big day. You assumed they'd be there when you needed a shoulder. You assumed they'd ask how you're doing when you've been quiet. And when none of that happens, you're left wondering if you matter at all. But maybe that question is the problem. Because when you link your value to someone else's actions, you give them control over your peace. Expectation isn't love. It's a silent demand, a condition you place without realizing. And most people, even the well-meaning ones, will fail you when you start expecting them to fulfill your emotional needs. That doesn't mean they're bad people. It means they're different people. And difference doesn't always align. What you need might not be what they're capable of giving. And that mismatch becomes the root of your pain. You try lowering your expectations, thinking that will protect your heart. But even then, even when you ask for the bare minimum, some people still fall short. And that's when you realize it's not about lowering the bar. It's about removing the bar altogether. About learning to show up for yourself so fiercely that no one's absence shakes you. About building an inner world so whole that someone forgetting you no longer feels like abandonment. Disappointment teaches you. It teaches you who's real. It shows you the difference between presence and performance. It breaks your illusions so you can see people clearly. You start recognizing the difference between effort and excuses. You stop chasing clarity from people who leave you confused. You learn that peace isn't found in people who are inconsistent. Peace is found in not meeting consistency from the wrong people. And yet, there's a softness to this lesson. Because once you stop expecting, you start appreciating. You see the value in the little things people do without being asked. You stop demanding perfection. You stop trying to control outcomes. You learn to flow, to accept, to adapt. And that acceptance is not weakness. It's power. Because when you stop expecting, you stop being disappointed. And when you stop being disappointed, you begin to feel. Fake friends are worse than enemies. Because enemies show you their colors from the start. There is no confusion, no guessing. You know where they stand, and you learn to keep your distance. But fake friends, they smile at you, they hug you, they say all the right things, they pretend to care, and that is what makes them dangerous. They earn your trust with charm, only to poison it with betrayal when you least expect it. The knife they carry is not in their hand, it is in their words, in their silence. In the moments you needed them, and they disappeared. They are the ones who listen to your secrets, only to whisper them later, who praise you in public and mock you in private, who tell you they love your growth, but flinch when you succeed. Their support is hollow, their loyalty is conditional, and their friendship a performance, one that ends the moment the spotlight moves away from them and onto you. They envy quietly, compete secretly, and act like they are helping while they're actually holding you back. At first you don't notice it, because they are good at pretending. They show up when it's easy. They celebrate you when it costs them nothing. But the second you fall, the second you need depth instead of decoration, they vanish. Or worse, they stay, but drain you. They take and take and take, but give nothing real in return. They're only around when you are convenient, when your energy is high, when your name carries weight. Once that changes, so does their behavior. What makes fake friends worse than enemies is the confusion they create. They make you question your instinct. You think, maybe I'm imagining things, maybe I'm being too sensitive, because they're so good at pretending. They gaslight you with politeness. They disguise manipulation as kindness. And all the while, they erode your confidence, your clarity, your peace. It becomes exhausting to keep wondering where you stand. With enemies, at least you know, but with fake friends, you live in constant uncertainty. They will mimic your dreams, copy your words, and compete with you in silence. But if you call it out, they act innocent. They tell you you're overthinking. They use guilt to keep you quiet. They make you feel like the villain for setting boundaries. And that's how they win. Not by overpowering you, but by weakening you from within. By using your trust against you. But then comes the moment you finally see them clearly. Maybe it's a small betrayal. Maybe it's the way they laughed when others mocked you. Maybe it's how they never clap when you win. Whatever it is, something clicks, the mask slips, and you are done. Not out of hate, out of clarity. You stop explaining yourself. You stop chasing their approval. You stop keeping space for people who never respected your presence. The worst part is not losing them. The worst part is realizing they were never truly with you in the first place. That all the memories you valued were just convenience for them. But even that realization is a gift, because now you are free. Free to rebuild your circle with truth. Free to stop mistaking noise for loyalty. Free to protect your heart from charming liars. You don't need people who pretend to love you. You need people who love you loud, love you quiet, love you even when there's nothing to gain. You begin to understand that not everyone who sits at your table is your friend. Some are there to eat, some are there to watch, and some are just there to make sure you don't rise too high. But once you spot a fake friend, you never unsee them. You learn to walk away, to choose peace over performance, to trust actions over words, and in doing so, you finally make space for something real. Loneliness builds self-respect. It begins when everyone steps back and you are left standing in a room with your own echo. You feel abandoned, misunderstood, maybe even betrayed. There is silence where there used to be laughter. Your phone barely lights up. The world keeps moving, but you feel like you are standing still. And that feeling cuts deep. At first, you try to fill the emptiness. You scroll, you call, you reach out. You want someone, anyone to remind you that you matter. But they are busy, or uninterested, or just gone. You lie awake some nights thinking about all the people you were there for. All the times you dropped everything to help, to listen, to show up. And now when your heart is heavy, there is no one knocking on your door. That loneliness hits like a wave. It pulls you on. It makes you doubt your worth. But what you do not see at first is that this silence, this isolation, is not a punishment. It is an invitation to finally see yourself, to finally value yourself. Not through someone else's attention, but through your own eyes. When you have no one to lean on, you learn to stand taller, not because you want to, but because you have to. You stop chasing validation. You stop waiting for someone to tell you that you are enough. You begin to build your own voice, one that is no longer shaped by other people's expectations or approval. You start setting boundaries. Not out of anger, but out of self-worth. You begin to choose peace over company, silence over drama, stillness over noise. And that shift changes everything. You stop shrinking to fit in. You stop saying yes just to keep others around. You realize that not everyone deserves access to your time, your energy, your softness. Some people were only meant to teach you how not to be treated. And it is often in the quietest seasons of life that you finally learn how to listen, not to others, but to your own soul. You begin to enjoy your own presence, not in a lonely way, but in a sacred way. You read more, think more, reflect more. You learn what calms you, what drains you, what fuels you. You stop forcing connections that feel one-sided. You begin to protect your space like your life depends on it. Because in many ways it does. Your peace is no longer for sale. You become selective, not bitter, reserved, not cold. You learn that solitude does not mean something is missing. Sometimes it means you are finally full. The more time you spend with yourself, the more you start to love who you are becoming. And with that love comes respect, a respect that says, I won't tolerate being you. I won't allow myself to be someone's second option. I will not stay in places where I am merely convenient. That kind of self-respect doesn't scream. It simply walks away. It chooses better. It waits for better. It creates better. And people notice the shift. They feel the distance. They say you've changed, but you haven't changed. You've just awakened. You've just started loving yourself in ways you used to beg others to. You don't need the noise anymore. You don't crave the spotlight. You are not interested in superficial friendships or temporary comfort. You've tasted something deeper, the power that grows in silence, the dignity that forms in loneliness, the strength that comes from being your own. The loudest cheerleaders are often the first to leave. In the beginning, their energy feels electric. They clap the hardest when you win. They hype you up in front of others. They post about you, tell people you are amazing, and say they are proud of you. And it feels real. It feels like you have finally found people who will stay through everything. But slowly, without warning, that volume starts to fade. Their voice isn't as loud. Their presence isn't as strong. Their excitement dulls. And one day, they are just gone. You begin to question everything. Did they ever really care? Were they cheering for you or for the image of you that served their narrative? You replay old memories, trying to find the exact moment it shifted, that first sign they were slipping away. Maybe it was when your success started threatening them. Maybe it was when you showed your vulnerability and it made them uncomfortable. Maybe it was simply that your struggle didn't fit into their version of friendship anymore. People love you when you are rising. It's exciting to be close to someone who is doing well. There's attention, there's positivity, there's light. But when that light dims, when you start facing obstacles, when life gets messy, many of those same people go silent. Because clapping is easy. Standing beside someone in silence, in pain, in darkness, that requires, and not everyone has it. It is heartbreaking to realize that some of your loudest supporters were only ever seasonal, that their energy was real, but temporary, that they only loved you when loving you was easy. The moment things got hard, they backed away. Slowly, or sometimes all at once, they stop responding. They cancel plans. They say you've changed as if growth is a betrayal. But maybe you didn't change. Maybe they just never really saw the real you in the first place. You start to recognize the pattern. The ones who praise you publicly are often the same ones who vanish privately. The ones who flood your comments disappear from your inbox when you need them most. It's confusing. because their words were genuine ones, or so you thought. But maybe they were never cheering for your soul. Maybe they were cheering for your success, for your shine, for what being around you did for them. And when that no longer served them, the applause stopped. It's not about blaming them. It's about understanding human nature. People are drawn to the spotlight, to success, to energy that feels good. But when that energy turns into tears, pain, setbacks, they don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to support without being seen. So they leave. And it hurts, not just because you miss them, but because you trusted them. You believed their claps meant something deeper. Eventually, you stop expecting loyalty from volume. You stop trusting noise. You start noticing the quiet ones, the ones who never made a big show, but always checked in. The ones who don't shout about you online, but show up offline when it matters. Those are your people, the real ones. The ones who don't need a front row seat to stay close. But until you learn this, you will face many heartbreaks. You will mistake performance for presence. You will confuse excitement for commitment. And that is okay. It's part of growing, because every time a loud cheerleader leaves, they teach you something. True friendship doesn't need a stage. It doesn't need claps. It just needs someone who stays when everything else falls quiet. The strongest people stand alone first. Not because they want to, but because they have to. Life does not always give you the luxury of having support. Sometimes you are pushed into solitude, into long nights of silent reflection, into situations where you have no choice but to carry your own weight. And it is in those moments, when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, when no one even knows what you are going through, that your true strength begins to grow. There is something about being alone that strips away all illusions. You stop pretending. You stop performing. You stop waiting for someone to come and save you, because you finally realize that no one is coming. You are it. You are the backup plan. You are the emergency contact. You are the one who has to figure it out. That pressure, that responsibility, it breaks many people. But those who endure it, they become unshakable. People often see strength as loud, as aggressive, as something external. But real strength is quiet. It's built in the moments when you want to give up but don't. When you want to cry but choose to keep going. When everything in your world is falling apart, and you still manage to get up, get dressed, and face the day. No one claps for that. No one sees that. But that is where resilience is born. Being alone teaches you to listen to yourself. Not the version of you others created, but the real you. The one who knows what hurts, what heals, what matters. You begin to trust your own decisions. You stop needing constant advice. You stop looking for validation, because you've already been through the fire, and you walked out of it on your own. There is a quiet pride in that, a dignity that cannot be taken away. The people who seem the calmest, the most grounded, the most confident, they didn't get that way by accident. They earned it. Through tears no one saw. Through battles no one helped them fight. They learned to rely on themselves, because they had no other option. And in doing so, they discovered a level of self-belief that cannot be shaken by rejection, by loss, by failure. They've already faced worse and survived. Standing alone forces you to confront your fear. You learn that pain does not last forever, that healing is not linear, that you can feel broken and still move forward. You learn to enjoy your own company, to create peace in your environment, to protect your energy. You start letting go of people who drain you, even if you once loved them deeply, because now you respect yourself too much to be surrounded by anything less than genuine. And once you've stood alone, really stood alone, not just physically but emotionally, something changes. You are no longer afraid of silence. You are no longer desperate for company. You are no longer willing to beg for support. You understand your value. You know what you bring to the table, and that changes the way you let people treat you. Strength built in solitude is a different kind of power. It does not need applause. It does not seek approval. It just is. It walks into rooms with quiet confidence. It doesn't compete. It doesn't compare. It simply shows up, whole, unbothered, unshakable, and people feel it, even if they cannot explain it, even if they don't understand where it comes from. But you know, because you earned it, because you've been there, because you stood alone for